My father attacked me after an argument, leaving me in shock. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and my relationship with my mom is strained. I, a 16-year-old female, and my mother, a 41-year-old female, have been involved in numerous disagreements recently. I believe much of it stems from my growing awareness that I am no longer a child and can recognize when she is attempting to manipulate me. My mother has been a single, married parent for many years. When I was 9, my father left for our home country and remained there until he returned in 2021 to bring us back with him. During those intervening years, my mother endured a great deal. Even before he departed, my father attended college in another state. He would visit every 3 months, only to leave again shortly after. It is crucial to understand that my father had significant anger issues. He was even absent for the birth of my youngest sister. I have 6 siblings, one older than me. As the eldest girl, I have always felt a strong bond with my mother. It seems she is the only person capable of both inflicting pain and showing me love. Her words can cause deep hurt. In any case, I have essentially acted as a second mother to my siblings, though I do not take on that role excessively. When I was 4, I would wake up early to feed my younger siblings, while my mother took my older brother outside to wait for the school bus. We have always shared a close relationship, yet I feel that my father has been a divisive force between us. It is worth mentioning that I was admitted to a mental hospital at the age of 13 for self-harm. My mother does not believe in that issue. I was later diagnosed with anxiety and depression. On the day my father returned to take us, my mother and I had an argument the previous day. My sister claimed that I physically assaulted our mother, prompting my father to grab me and throw me across the room. I was so hurt that I ran to the train station, returning 4 hours later when I noticed my mother searching for me. My father frightened me so much that I cried and hyperventilated when he instructed my mother to leave the house, as he wanted to confront me alone. Fast forward to our home country. It is crucial to note that my father never sent us any money during the years he was away. Therefore, I was shocked to discover a Rolex watch and another luxury timepiece, along with some very expensive clothing, in my father's room. This discovery infuriated me. My mother returned to America for a few months to attend my brother's graduation. One night, my father entered our room and confiscated our phones. When I asked why, he again threw me across the room and smashed my phone on the floor. During this incident, my cousin, who had looked after us when our parents were not home, ended up in a physical altercation. Moving ahead to my graduation, I was back in America, completing the 8th grade. My father did not attend. My mother shared a great deal of information with me regarding her relationship with him. She stated that although he had wronged her immensely, she chose to forgive him and allow him a chance to reclaim his role as a father. I expressed that I felt indifferent toward him and did not want to hear her encouragement to try my best, just because he is my father. Fast forwarding again, my family and I now reside with my mother's 2 youngest sisters and her youngest brother. They are very loving, but they can also hurt me. My father returned to America to work, leaving us in their care. I became very attached to my mother, which led to my depression. Soon, I began having disagreements with my aunt, culminating in physical confrontations. My father came back in November of the following year, and we had another argument, which solidified my feelings. I had been diagnosed with H. pylori and was taking medication that made me sleepy. I forgot to take my medication, and my mother reminded me not to forget. My father insisted I should take her to the doctor. We were supposed to start treatment the following month, and I responded that I still had time. He became angry and stood up. I ran to my room and locked the door. He began pounding on it, demanding I open up. I yelled that he could not act like a father after being absent for so long. My mother later told me that my words angered him, so when I eventually opened the door, he delivered 3 hard punches to my face before my mother could intervene. Then, he grabbed a large wooden ruler, about 1 yard long, and attempted to strike me with it. I became extremely dizzy and fell asleep while crying. Although my mother told him that his actions were wrong, she also informed me that I should not have provoked his anger. I was left feeling thoroughly confused. My mother has 10 siblings, and she is 4th in line. She arrived in America at the age of 15, working to support her family. She built them a house in their country, providing financial assistance consistently. It seems my maternal grandmother favors the three youngest siblings and usually does not acknowledge my mother unless she initiates conversation. My grandmother had her first child at 15, and her husband, my mother's father, was 32 at the time, making her quite young. When my brother was graduating, he passed away just 2 months prior, which significantly affected her mental state. In my view, he truly loved her. Anyway, the three youngest are quite spoiled, particularly now that they are in America. There are always chaotic situations concerning work or other issues. They do not drive, and my mother's other sister, whom we will call Sam, must transport them back and forth even though she has 3 children under 6 years old and is not employed. They refuse to use Uber except when it is for entertainment, and whenever they want to do something, my grandmother always asks, "Who will drive them?" They also believed I was possessed, resulting in 3 months of having Quran recitations performed on me, which was incredibly traumatic. I even pretended that the demon had left in order to be left alone. When that did not work, I told my mother that if she wanted me to go back, she would have to cut off my arms and legs or take my lifeless body. They finally left me alone after that. I fell into a deep depression following all of this and slept for an entire month. During that time, I transferred to a new school and asked my mother to take me to a doctor because I was feeling extremely angry, constantly yelling over minor issues, and spiraling back into depression. The doctor concluded that I was fine and only had low iron levels, so that was the end of it. After my father hit me, my heart shattered, and I made a decision to stop speaking to him unless he spoke to me first. I feel as though my mother does not understand me like she once did, and that pains me. She is unaware that her words can exacerbate my emotional highs and lows, causing me the deepest hurt when she dismisses my feelings. Last year, my mother returned to America to take my sister, the one just younger than me, let's call her M, to her 8th grade graduation. My other aunt, Sam, came to stay with us. She was wonderful and my favorite among all my mother's siblings. I genuinely believe that if she had not arrived in America when she did, my mother would have lost her sanity trying to care for us on her own. Regardless, Sam came with her 3 kids, and everything was going smoothly until we began arguing over trivial matters. At 15, I was still prohibited from engaging in many activities, such as hanging out with friends or leaving the house whenever I wanted. I rarely had the chance to go out, and even those occasions often required a considerable amount of yelling. I grew resentful of all my siblings. My younger siblings did not face consequences like the 3 oldest did. If M, my older brother, and I did something wrong, we received harsh punishments with various implements. We were treated like experimental children. My younger siblings, however, were not subjected to that type of discipline. It is not that I wanted them to be punished, but it saddens me that we were essentially the test subjects. As conflicts escalated, I turned to vaping, but that only occurred after disputes. My mind was constantly racing, and my only respite was school until that, too, was taken away from me in September 2024 when my father insisted we switch to an online American school because our IGS grades would not be recognized there. I began feeling depressed yet again because I am quite social. I shared this with my mother, and she told me that I was overly concerned about my friends and should concentrate more on my siblings. I believe that moment marked the onset of my heavy vaping. Gradually, I descended deeper into depression, sleeping excessively, and when I was awake, I was fighting with my mother. I grew utterly exhausted by it all. Then, on January 16th of this year, my mother discovered my vaping. She mentioned that she had begun to notice behavioral changes and my excessive sleeping. I attempted to explain that my sleepiness was not a result of the vaping, but she refused to listen. Surprisingly, she did not hit me. Instead, she simply took my phone and left the room. After 2 days, I visited a psychologist who diagnosed me with bipolar disorder, explaining that my emotional fluctuations were due to this condition. My mother was shocked, and I felt unable to share most of my issues with the psychologist, as my mother was present in the room too. We returned home, and initially, my mother was more patient with me. However, as time went on, she grew more frustrated and insisted that the psychologist was not my mother and that she was, and she knew how to handle me. Here we are, nearly 2 months later, and we are still arguing incessantly. Not a single day passes without disagreements, and I feel exhausted and unable to cope. Every time I emerge from a depressive episode, she says something hurtful that disrupts all my progress. It feels as if she does not want me to heal. My sister M is considering severing contact when she goes to college. I am unsure what to do. I love my mother dearly, and she is the most significant person in my life. What should I do? Please help me. Edit. We have not returned after that. Story 2. I accidentally exposed my gossip about family photo sharing to my sisters. Now, I fear I've damaged our relationships forever. Venting about myself. I am an idiot. Backstory. I have 3 sisters. I will refer to them as Carol, Barb, and Jan. We had a very traditional upbringing. I am the second oldest. The eldest, Carol, was the straight A, perfect child. I probably had and still have attention deficit disorder and always felt inferior. My oldest sister was almost like a little adult, always following the rules. As we grew up, she would say things like, "That's my dollhouse that Dad made for me," or, "That's my Barbie camper," and so on. When we got older, it became, "That piece of furniture you are using belongs to me," and so on. She was very stingy about everything, whether it was clothes or records. She always had to be the best, the smartest, and would often brag about Mom and Dad taking her out to eat lobster when she was little. By the time I came along, with 2 sisters closely behind, we were mostly eating at home or visiting McDonald's on special occasions. My parents took us to all of her band competitions and flute performances from junior high through college. Since she was 5 years older, she didn't necessarily attend our activities. I remember her shaming me for proudly displaying the trophies I won in elementary school for cheering. At that time, she had not made majorette in junior high. It made me feel so inferior and ashamed as a 9 or 10-year-old. Sadly, I peaked in junior high cheerleading, so I wasn't really anything to be jealous of. Looking back, it kind of seemed like it was her world and we just lived in it. We were always told, and still are by my elderly father, how intelligent she was, how she read at age 3, how she was the salutatorian, and how she graduated from college with only 1 B. We are in our 40s and 50s now, and she is 60. My father frequently mentions what a memory she has. Meanwhile, we all have college degrees, and the 3 younger sisters are teachers. Carol pursued a communication degree, but has always worked odd jobs that do not utilize her degree, yet she is considered the smartest among us. She acts superior. Barb's daughter is currently on her way to becoming a certified public accountant. As she passes her tests, my father tells Barb, "She's just as smart as Carol." Of course, this annoys Barb. It is hurtful. Carol seems entitled, and my father appears smitten and oblivious. It feels so petty to write about this, but it genuinely hurts. He constantly mentions how she graduated with the highest honors. We did well too, he doesn't seem to realize that. After our mother died, it slowly took time for us to realize, each of us separately, that almost all of our family photo albums were missing. Our living room cabinet had been stuffed with albums for decades. We began asking who had them and if we could share, but it never led anywhere. In discussing this, the 3 of us younger sisters figured out, through process of elimination, that Carol likely had them. We started planning a day to share pictures so that we could all have some and so that my father could have memories. My sister, Barb, approached Carol and tried to pin down dates. We have never gotten around to it, except for one time we attempted to scan a few pictures, but they didn't turn out well. It breaks my heart thinking that my father, who is home alone at 89, could find comfort in seeing pictures of his life with my mother and family. We sisters all suspected Carol. Additionally, my father once said I could have a mirrored cabinet, but later I went over and he told me Carol wanted it and had taken it. I also had an antique Santa that my mother always said was mine, which I displayed every year through 2 marriages and 3 houses. About 4 or 5 years ago, Carol came to my house and claimed, "That was actually my toy," after our mother had died. I just let her take it out of my Christmas display. Whatever. I bought another one on eBay. It's not as nice, but it reminds me of our childhood. There always seems to be something. A few years back, when Carol was out of town, the rest of us took turns feeding her cats. When I went by myself, I started looking around her house for pictures but stopped because it felt wrong. I later found out my other 2 sisters went together another day and actually looked more thoroughly, discovering pictures pulled out of albums and placed in a box in the attic. A specific baby photo of Barb that she had requested was right on top. Barb had been asking for years for it, but Carol denied having it. Carol left it there because she didn't want her to know she had snooped, but she kept bringing it up over the years. Finally, a few years later, my sister Carol found it and returned it to Barb, just that one picture. We have received little pictures here and there from her. I would joke behind her back. Oh, she deemed me worthy of one. Occasionally, my oldest sister Carol will post a picture for my birthday where I am blowing out candles at age 2. It's just odd. Anyway, yesterday marked 16 years since my mom passed away. Carol posted a picture of my mom on Facebook that I hadn't seen in 40 years. It was from our big family trip out west. One person randomly commented that they enjoyed all the old photos she shares and asked whether she scans them all. My sister Carol replied that she scans some and shares others from Facebook. I sent that picture and comment to Barb and my youngest sister, Jan, and wondered, what the heck? We texted back and forth about how annoying it is, and it's obvious she possesses more pictures than we do. I shared it with my husband, and he found it amusing, saying that a picture from the 1980s wouldn't have been on Facebook. I got on a roll and started ranting like now. I sent that comment to my younger 2 sisters and laughed while ranting that she hides the pictures in her attic, thinking we don't know about them. That's literally how she disposed of her kids' toys when they were little. She would hide them for 6 months, and if the kids asked, she would sneak them back and never tell them she had taken them, probably to avoid any conflict. She is so sneaky. I mentioned in a text to Barb and Jan that it seemed diabolical. My oldest sister takes my father to his doctor's appointments, and I think he wants her to do so. That's how it has been. I jokingly said in yesterday's text, just because she takes him to his appointments doesn't mean she can steal all the pictures and lie about it. Well, lo and behold, I received a text several minutes later from Jan saying, "Wrong text thread." Oh dear. Yes, I sent that to all the sisters, so a text war ensues from Carol. I feel awful. I apologize profusely over many texts and then say, well, I will be blunt, we need to share pictures. They were there, now they're not. My mother's recipe box was here, now it's not. We've asked about sharing those too. She claims she doesn't have them, but then lists what she does have. She insists that she will bring them all to us. We say we don't want them all, we just want to share and let my father have some. They are his. He is still here. So, I am exposed as a complete jerk, and I expose my husband for laughing with me, as well as my other 2 sisters, by letting her see that we have been talking about her behind her back. It is a complete mess. I feel I have damaged family relationships beyond repair, and there is nothing I can do. I have apologized profusely to everyone multiple times. And again to Carol this morning. I said I take full responsibility. I was extra emotional with it being my mother's death anniversary, going through menopause, depression for which I take medication, and honestly, I do not know. I have a much shorter fuse now and tend to lose it instead of holding things in or expressing emotions in a healthier way. Gossiping and speaking poorly about her was entirely wrong and hurtful, and so I have apologized repeatedly. When I talk to my immediate family, they say I should never have texted it, and it serves as a lesson for me. Yes, I agree. It feels awful. I take responsibility. However, I do believe something was off. I share all of this backstory because I genuinely feel gaslit. Maybe I am seeking someone to tell me that, while yes, it was hurtful and inappropriate for me to gossip, the underlying issues from the past boiled over and led to this. My oldest sister Carol has always had a victim complex. She believes she is correct all the time, and if anything does not favor her, it is because she has been mistreated. Yes, I was indeed the one who acted like a jerk, the awful one yesterday on the 16th anniversary of our mother's passing. I am venting here. I would prefer not to receive further condemnation as I am truly sick over it. I have learned my lesson, and I will not gossip via text in the future. I hardly see anyone anyway, as I live far away and spend time mainly with my children and grandchildren. I should have said nothing or been much wiser. I recognize that. It stems from years of frustration. It may sound petty, but as I told Carol, it is not just about possessions, it is about memories of a family of 6, my father's memories. I will forget about this incident, and then she will post a random picture, reminding me again that we do not seem to possess these memories in our photos. I am rambling. If you have read this far, I genuinely appreciate it. I know I was in the wrong. I feel sick and profoundly sorry for it all. I just sent another apology. She replied, "Okay, thanks." Then she sent a text to all the sisters stating where she has left the pictures she does have and mentioned finding more at Dad's, and she left the recipe box. I am so sad. Thank you for reading. If this ends up lost in the vastness of the internet, at least I have vented. I will pray for peace of mind and for wisdom to think before I act in the future. Thank you. My name is Amy. Story 3. Kickboxing class begins. New guy joins, hits me hard. We bond, but it feels off. Invites me over, it's awkward, ends in disappointment. Wait, he expected cuddling. I genuinely do not know where to direct this inquiry. Recently, I joined a kickboxing class, and we are all participating due to our anxieties, among other reasons. On a positive note, I enjoy it. However, last week, a new male participant attended. He appeared relaxed, sported a nose piercing, and had a lovely R&B singing voice. During the class, I was paired up with him for one-on-one practice. I am a beginner, while he is more experienced. When the instructor was demonstrating the proper movements, this guy laughed and made comments like, "Can't you move your hips? Don't you dance?" I struggled for quite some time, attempting the fake punches too rapidly. Our instructions were to simulate punches while the other person ducked. His irritation was palpable, which only increased my nervousness. When the instructor came over to assist, this individual remarked that it was cute, which further embarrassed me. At the conclusion of class, we all had to spar, and while usually the other participants hit me softly in consideration of my inexperience, this guy actually struck my face, causing pain and confusion. To be honest, I felt humiliated. Regardless, I am quite sensitive, so as soon as the class ended, I tried to exit quickly. However, my instructor stopped me for feedback, which allowed this guy to catch up with me. He inquired whether I was all right with him accompanying me and appeared very cautious not to make me uncomfortable. He suggested we sit for a moment, to which I consented because I wanted to socialize. He lit a joint, which I do not smoke, and subsequently asked if I would like to meet up that evening, Valentine's Day. I declined, explaining that I needed to take a phone call from my ex, who is in prison, and that I was busy. We continued to text throughout the week, and he came across as intuitive, sharing wisdom during our conversations. As we delved deeper, I opened up about my past assault and mentioned that I now feel as if bugs are crawling on me since that incident. I worry daily about potential herpes exposure, but did not disclose this to him. He handled it kindly, noting that trauma can manifest in various ways. Eventually, he suggested we meet in London to visit an art gallery or cook together at his place. Although I was anxious and initially uninterested, I wanted to connect with people like him and socialize. He indicated that we would have a purpose for hanging out, so I agreed even though it wasn't truly what I wanted. He appeared somewhat depressed, and I felt compelled to help. At one point, he made a comment suggesting he only wanted to spar with me because of my nice lips. I thought that was flirtatious, but then I sensed he might have a more feminine demeanor and wondered if he was merely complimenting me. I apologize if this offends anyone in the LGBTQ community, but I find that singing and jewelry are often seen more commonly among gay individuals, and it's rare to meet straight men with similar traits. One of my exes is bisexual, and I still feel attached to him due to his soft and gentle nature at times, although that is straying off topic. He also apologized for hitting my face, explaining he takes the sport seriously. By the way, this is a free class. Ultimately, I met up with him and visited his area. He invited me to his hostel on the 14th floor, which was extremely hot. Within 5 minutes, he suggested we go to the bathroom to smoke weed. I agreed but declined to share because of my anxiety. After his persistent offers, I finally accepted a small amount. Subsequently, we discussed family issues, but I had to exit the bathroom as he needed to use it. The conversation ended abruptly while I was speaking about my family, leaving me feeling awkward, wondering if I had spoken too much or bored him. I assumed he might bring it up again later, but he did not. When he exited, he offered me more water and was polite. However, there was no food available to cook, even though he had indicated earlier that he was out to get supplies. I also hadn't eaten all day, hoping the meet-up would be enjoyable. Instead, he mentioned it was raining and that he had just styled his hair. I replied that I understood, which contributed to my perception of him as somewhat feminine. After returning from the bathroom, he suggested we watch a movie on his laptop, which I found exciting. However, he remained quiet and only wanted to watch the film. In retrospect, he may have been high, as I recall feeling slightly bored just sitting there watching. We sat on the bed, and I was perched at the edge with my coat on when he asked if I wanted to cuddle with him. I hesitated, explaining that I had to leave soon and I wasn't very affectionate. I felt awkward, and having smoked weed, I began to worry about my safety. I tried to remain calm, reasoning that if I acted composed, he wouldn't pose a threat. At that point, we continued watching the movie, but he turned away and laid his head in my lap. This development made me feel quite uncomfortable. Just to provide some context, I ended a long-term relationship 2 years ago with someone who had schizophrenia, and we were nearly inseparable. I left due to frequent arguments over trivial matters. Then, I began a new relationship that lasted about a year, but he is now incarcerated for domestic violence not only against me but also against others. He sells drugs and continues to call me from prison. I was also assaulted during that relationship, and I worry that the assailant may have given me a sexually transmitted disease, a secret I keep. To add to my stress, my ex knows my address, and I feel ashamed due to my recent experiences. Consequently, I am not seeking a relationship right now. The only hint I gave him was mentioning my sexual assault over text. He is also aware of the calls from the guy in prison. Interestingly, he commented that I look like someone who has been through a lot. I suppose I have a sad appearance. Therefore, I was surprised that he rested his head on my lap. I indicated that I needed to leave in about 20 minutes, and shortly thereafter, he requested that I remove my coat because it was uncomfortable for him and smelled of garlic from cooking. I refused since I planned to leave soon. Eventually, I left, promising to return the following day, which was a lie. We exchanged texts occasionally, but I have not even opened his latest message over the past 4 days. I am unsure how to feel. I am disappointed. Am I the rude one, or is he? I also have kickboxing class in a few hours and am contemplating skipping it because I have ignored his message. However, I enjoy going as it challenges me to step outside my comfort zone. Should I text him beforehand to ease any potential awkwardness? I feel let down because he suggested we would engage in a fun outing, which was uplifting for me. In all my past relationships, my partners have seldom made plans with me, so I felt hopeful when he wanted to do something together. Yet, when I arrived, he seemed more in the mood to smoke weed than to go out. He noted that I looked sad, so if that is the case, why would he assume I would be interested in cuddling? Is he merely trying to be kind and affectionate because we both share similar experiences, or was he attempting to initiate something more intimate? Given my past traumas, I am particularly sensitive to these matters. I am trying to discern whether I am overreacting or underreacting. I am 31 years old and have not maintained friendships since I was 25. Prior to that, I had difficulties forming connections. It's been 7 years since I last met friends, so I feel somewhat out of touch. Please help me understand what transpired. In my early 20s, I would meet girls to go to the cinema or shop, but smoking weed and watching a movie on the first meetup doesn't seem typical for friendship. Was he attempting to manipulate me in some way? Why would he engage in this if we were all there to seek support and not to tangle ourselves in romantic scenarios? Please explain this to me as if you were my parent. I want to continue kickboxing, for which I have been offered a free class, and I am determined to take full advantage to improve my mental health. I don't want men to deter me from pursuing new opportunities. Do you believe he might be gay? My bisexual ex is Muslim, so I assume he may hide his sexuality, and sometimes I ponder if he could be gay. However, I don't focus on that too much because he continues to check on me and sometimes invites me to meals. It feels more genuine instead of simply an invitation to hang out and smoke weed. I place more importance on effort and connection rather than sexual attraction and desire. At this stage in my life, I need emotional support, but not from a man whose intentions are unclear. I honestly believed the guy from kickboxing might be gay. He could also be bisexual. Yet that isn't the main issue. It's the fact that he created an impression of engaging in meaningful activities with me, which ultimately didn't happen. Knowing about my past assault, I am puzzled about why he solely wanted to smoke weed and then cuddle. I am 31, not 21. I feel disrespected. I am not a stuck-up person. The previous year I was comfortable visiting my ex and relaxing. However, circumstances have changed, and I desire friendships and romantic interests who genuinely want to share enjoyable experiences with me. I have never ventured outside London, and I have endured abusive relationships and family dynamics. I want to live life. Am I overreacting?